How you doing, everybody? This is Elisha Hall for day 2 of my Self Actualization Experiment. So I had to say that with the head bob. I had to put some emphasis on it. But I actually wanted to come just really dive right into day 2. I got some really great feedback from the first day and the pre-video. I want to thank everybody that's going along this journey with me. And I had someone ask me, "Hey, Elisha, I don't see a microphone clipped to you. Are you using a mic or anything like that?" And I am actually some sort of a USB Samsung mic. This is what I'm using. But I get some of the craziest questions. But I just wanted to show you that. It's kind of out of frame. But in diving into day 2, okay, this has been pretty interesting. So this is Sunday, so I went to church. But in my morning process, what I was going through and thinking about was pretty interesting. I was thinking about what is it that gets under our skin? What is it about the things that upset us, that frustrate us, that push our buttons, things like that, our triggers. And I was thinking about, like, for example, there's this thing in us. There's this thing, let's call it ego. And ego tends to make whatever's going on, we make it about us. Whatever is happening, it's about us. And one of the things that I've realized is usually when someone's really mad at me, usually when someone's pissed off or goes off on me, it has nothing to do with me. It has something else, there's something else going on in their life that I don't know about, or maybe I do know about, but they're letting it out on me. And so when I was thinking, there's still something in us, though, that gets offended, that gets upset, that gets frustrated, or what have you, when someone else says something or does something around us or to us. And so that ego that makes those situations all about it. Let's use a universal example of getting cut off on the freeway. So you get cut off on the freeway. There's something about us that wants to get mad. How dare somebody do that and cut us off and put our life in jeopardy or our family's life in jeopardy? And that all is true. But see, instead of reacting in that way of being frustrated or upset, if I take a step back and I separate from my ego, because my ego is a part of me, but I'm not my ego. And if I separate myself from my ego and I look at how I'm being upset or frustrated by the situation, and I say, maybe that person is actually in a hurry because maybe their kid was in a crazy accident and they're in the hospital and they have to get there and they're not thinking straight, or maybe I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. But when I take a step back to evaluate what's going on from a separate point of view than just what's going on in here, then I can respond to it in a different way than my normal reaction. And so even when I think about like our triggers or like when people push our buttons in a relationship, let's say husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, we know how to push the other person's buttons. I mean, we definitely know how to push the other person's buttons. Even our kids know how to push our buttons, like as parents. And when I think about our buttons like switches, like a light switch. So let's say you have a light switch here, and it turns on this light here. Someone pushes that button or that light switch, and it turns on this light. And what I realized is we have the ability to, we will always pretty much have the light switch. It'll always be there. Sometimes it won't be as sensitive as others. But if I look at it and I say, okay, well, now my button's been pushed or that light switch has been hit, and I can sever that connection between the switch and the light. So instead of the switch being hit and then I immediately react in a certain way, with anger, hate, frustration, whatever it is. But I sever that connection, and then I look at it and I say, how can I respond in a different way that's different than my normal reaction? Because I have those buttons. We all have those buttons. They're different. Whether it's in a relationship or sometimes people will just say things about a situation, and because maybe we have a certain belief that's opposite to that, we feel like it's attacking our belief, so automatically we feel like we need to defend ourselves. But that's our ego making everything about us having to defend ourselves. And we don't necessarily have to. Pick your battles. Not every battle is something we got to dive into and defend ourselves for, because something, whether it's politics, whether it's relationships, whether it's whatever, there's all sorts of situations. And so in my personal journey of being able to be the best me possible, I realized that this is a growing process, that as I grow through this, as I go through it and I grow through it, it's a similar situation to like building a muscle. See, it's painful. I played football in high school and in college, and man, we used to have to lift some crazy weight. And the thing about that is, when you lift weight, especially in a muscle that you've never done it before, or in a different way. See, if I do a bicep curl, I'm working one muscle. But if I do a different type of curl or with a twist or something different, then there's other fibers and other muscles that I can work out that I've never worked out before. It's the exact same thing in our minds and within the rest of our being, that we can exercise and grow areas that we've never even really attempted to. Because maybe in school we're only used to growing a certain area, maybe our intellect. And there's so many other areas and parts and pieces to us than just our intellect. So when I think about growing a muscle, I work out, and I work out with resistance. And what that resistance does is it breaks down the muscle so that way I can rebuild and rebuild on top of that. And it gets bigger and it gets stronger. It's the same thing with the rest of us. If we want to be able to grow a certain area of how we are spiritually or how we are in any other area in our life, we have to do the same thing. We create that resistance by challenging our beliefs, challenging the status quo, and it's not easy, it's painful. And then from there, we're able to break it down, and then we can rebuild on top of it, making it stronger, making it grow faster. And it's just an interesting thing that I've never, I guess, if anything, thought about it in such a deep way. Then now that I'm taking this time to understand myself and my purpose in a whole new level. So this is a beautiful time. So this is something that, even when I think about like my relationships, being married in the past, and I'm getting married young. I was married at 20 years old, and how I'm not married now. But I think about, if I knew the things now about relationships and about love and about people, then that I know now, it'd be a whole nother ballgame. I'm sure we can say that in a lot of different areas in life, but think about it. How are we growing? I know that I'm a completely different person today than I was in the past. How are we? How are you? How are you different today than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What about a year ago? How about 6 months ago? How about 2 weeks ago? How different are you now than you were 2 weeks ago? Now, some of you are going to say, I'm completely different. All these things are going on in my life, and how I've grown in all these different areas, and how I've been able to open up my mind and be enlightened. And some of you are going to say, nothing's really changed. There's not much that's different. I have the same friends, I have the same goals, I have the same this, I have the same that. So, but we create that space of growth if we choose to. And a lot of times we don't necessarily choose to, because it can be scary and difficult, and it's different. If the average person around us in our circle is choosing to do the same thing, they're choosing to go the same route, then we don't want to be different, because it can be scary. Why would you want to be different? Why would you want to do something that's unknown when you don't know what's over there? Me personally, that's why I go over there, because I don't know what's over there, and I'm curious. I want to ask myself the hard questions. If I believe I can do something that questions like, I want to be able to, how can I accomplish something today that is so beyond my own abilities? How can I accomplish something today that is so beyond my own abilities that I have to either, I'm literally getting assistance and help from God and so many other people to be able to make it work? What is it that I can, these are kinds of questions that I ask myself. And I know it's incomplete, because I'm really just thinking about this on the fly, but that's the direction I go sometimes. And we all have that ability to create some sort of a, because we have limitless possibilities. Limitless possibilities. When we think about how there was a time in our history where no one thought of being in the sky like a bird, where no one would have thought, take a metal cylinder, put some wings on it, and put people inside and fly it over the Atlantic, fly it over the Pacific. There was a time in history where that wasn't even just not thought of. That was crazy. If you had like had a vision of something like that, you probably, I mean, there's a certain time in history you probably would have been burned at the stake and called a witch because it's so out there, right? And so I wonder what are the ideas today that are so out there and so beyond their time that we're almost like the Wright brothers in creating something and diving into something and manifesting something that's not only never been done before, but hasn't even been thought of before. So this is just the creative flow of what's happening. I mean, my morning process is just opening up my mind in so many different ways. So I want to thank you guys for staying in there and hanging out with me and through this journey for day 2. Self Actualization Experiment. Phenomenal. That's all I can say. Phenomenal. So thank you. Today is done. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.